Hello, everybody. I think all of you at this stage know Asghar. And if you don't, we as supervisors have done a terrible job of making sure that he gets out there, given that this is his final year review. Asghar has been on a great journey all the way from Iran to Sydney, and has grown a great deal as a young researcher during that time. As you'll learn today, he's had his systematic review accepted in an excellent journal, and he'll tell you more about that in a few minutes. And that was a major accomplishment for Asghar, and I noticed he just sat up straight in his chair and puffed his chest out with a bit of pride, and it's well deserved. So well done, Asghar. Today we'll be learning a little bit about Asghar's journey along the last 3 and a little bit years, and about his home stretch towards submitting. Somebody decided to mute me there, so maybe that was you, Rhonda.
No, it was not. I did not do that.
Somebody did it again. Asghar, over to you before I get muted again. Goodbye.
Thanks, Chris.
Hello, everyone, and thanks so much, Chris, for the good commentary introduction. And for good comments. Hello everyone. Thanks so much everyone for joining the meeting. I'm Asghar Ahmadi, and today I will be presenting for my final year review. I will present the studies that I conducted to complete my PhD thesis with the title "The Use of Machine Learning Methods for Coding Motivational Behavior in Education." I would like to thank the panel team at the audience and also my supervisors, Michael, Chris, and Bill, for their great supervision and support during my candidature. Now I will outline the reasons that I decided to do this topic. Teacher motivational behaviors are a key determinant of many student outcomes such as engagement and motivation. While many research studies investigated teachers' behavior and their impact on student outcomes, they relied on traditional methods such as teacher reports, student reports, or observer ratings to assess motivational behavior. These methods have limitations to accurately assess teachers' behaviors. For example, teachers may tend to present themselves more socially acceptable, and student reports may be influenced by student differences in interpreting teacher behaviors. Observer ratings can also be biased, as the coder's beliefs and tendencies may affect the coding test. Further, these days, researchers gather large data sets of teacher behaviors. However, traditional methods are inefficient methods as they are time-consuming and expensive. Recently, advances in natural language processing and machine learning models provided new methods to efficiently assess behavior. These methods can analyze large data sets at a quicker time and with less expense. So I aim to investigate the feasibility and applications of an automated coding method to assess teacher motivational behaviors. Now, just as a quick overview of the presentation, I outlined the 3 studies I conducted to reach the aim of my thesis. In the first study, I reviewed the applied machine learning methods for analyzing interpersonal interactions. In the second study, I classified teacher motivational behaviors and specified indicative features of each teacher motivational behavior. So the developed classification would facilitate automated coding of teacher behaviors. Finally, in the third study, I investigated the feasibility of an automated coding method for coding teachers' motivational behavior and tested its prediction power. The first study was a systematic review of machine learning for assessment and feedback of treatment fidelity. This paper has been published in Psychosocial Intervention with an impact factor of over 5. By doing this study, I investigated the applied automated methods for coding verbal behavior in interpersonal interactions, also examined the adherence to best machine learning practice guidelines. The methods I followed for this study was by setting up eligibility criteria for studies. Only those studies have been included that met all these four eligibility criteria, which includes participants to be helping professionals, where the verbal behavior in interpersonal interactions between helping professionals and their clients have been analyzed, and an automated coding method was used to analyze their behavior. Studies where participants were not helping professionals or where the interpersonal interactions were analyzed, interprofessional interactions were analyzed, were excluded. The search strategy included developing the search term for participants, the behavior measurements such as coding or assessment, the automated coding methods such as machine learning or natural language processing, and type of the behavior such as verbal behavior or the spoken language. Now on the study selection, the Prisma flow diagram shows the study selection process in my systematic review. The searches in databases yielded to 14,800 records after abstract and full text screening, and also adding additional papers that I outlined through reference screening and contacting the authors. 52 studies were included. Well, I will present the findings now. From the included studies, 34 papers were conducted in psychotherapy, 10 in medical setting, and 10 in education. The majority of studies used automated coding to implement pre-existing behavioral coding measure. A behavioral coding measure is designed to measure adherence to the practice guidelines or instructions. The motivational interviewing skill code was the most frequently applied behavioral coding measure. Overall, the studies used 41 unique models. The support vector machine was the most frequently applied model, followed by random forest and logistic regression. As it presented on the screen, the findings showed that larger data sets lead to more accurate prediction, maybe because there are more frequent codes in larger data sets, so the machine learning model predicts them more accurately. Examples of frequently observed codes are open questions, facilitations, and giving information. And an example of less frequently observed code is confrontational statements. The table represents the studies with the largest dataset that achieved higher prediction performance compared to other smaller datasets. In one study, authors increased the amount of data in their training set and observed significant improvement in prediction accuracy. Number of codes was different among the studies, from 2 codes to 89 codes. When the models predicted fewer number of codes, they were more accurate, and vice versa. As it's presented in the table, by increasing the number of codes, the prediction accuracy dropped. When the codes were more objective, they were predicted better compared to abstract codes. Questions, for example, a counselor asking questions to gather information such as how do you feel about that, and facilitation, like simple utterances that are used to acknowledgement, such as really, are examples of objective codes that were predicted more accurately, while empathy and advising are more abstract in meaning and were predicted less accurate. Utterance level prediction refers to the prediction of a small unit of spoken words that have a specific meaning. For example, you feel overwhelmed is an utterance. Session level prediction here refers to the prediction of a behavior over a session. The findings showed that prediction over a session was more accurate than utterance level prediction and had a stronger concordance with human-based coding. Increasing the history window size, for example, by accounting for the last 8 utterances, categorization accuracy improved, So this finding indicates that providing machine learning with more context may improve the accuracy of models. Now back to research questions. The first research question investigated the adherence to best practice guidelines. The findings indicated that most of the criteria were poorly met in the included studies. The second research question investigated the applied coding methods. Overall, 94 models were used and 41 models were unique models. The studies examined the performance of a model by comparing its performance against human coding, and overall they performed better than chance, and in some conditions they showed near human level performance. Now on the potential applications of findings, automated coding methods showed promising results in analyzing therapist language, so they can be used to provide specific and immediate feedback and improve practitioners' skills. In education, the models were used to predict easy tasks such as the number of questions a teacher asks and the type of class activity such as discussion or group work. One potential application of the models is to analyze other teacher behaviors such as their motivational behaviors. The studies in this review used a wide variety of accuracy measures, behavioral coding measures, and outcomes that made it difficult to compare the methods directly. If studies continue to use different assessment of gradient fidelity, then the generalizability of the machine learning models would be small. And using a set of core principles of change, more annotated data would be available to train the coding method for automated fidelity assessment. In other domains, such as health, a number of PLP studies have been conducted that allowed experts to reach consensus on theory-driven principles that are observable in helping professionals' behavior. These taxonomies would provide the platform for machine learning methods of automated coding for coding these specific behaviors. In the second study, I aim to develop a classification of teachers' motivational behaviors used in self-determination theory-based interventions. Automated coding method would facilitate analyzing large data sets of teacher behaviors and overcome the limitations of self-report and observational methods. To be able to use an automated coding method, we need to annotate teacher behaviors using a behavioral coding measure and then train the machine learning model to analyze teacher behaviors. In some domains, such as health, a set of core theory-driven principles of change have been developed that provide the platform for machine learning methods of automated coding. For example, in psychotherapy, motivational interviewing skill code outlines a number of effective strategies that are observable in therapist behavior. Such behavioral coding measures are required to use an automated coding method for analyzing behavior. However, such a measure hasn't been developed for teacher motivational behaviors. Also, evidence of intervention to change motivation suggests that behavior change strategies are more effective when they are based on a theory, and almost all the motivation change interventions use at least one theoretical framework. However, the principles of teacher motivational behavior hasn't been developed. Therefore, I aim to develop a classification of teacher motivational behaviors based on theory, so it can provide the platform for automated coding of teachers' motivational behavior. Particularly, I aim to systematically identify, describe, and classify teacher motivational behaviors applied in self-determination theory-based interventions in education. Such interventions used many strategies to change student motivations, so they are a good resource of core motivation change principles. I also aim to identify the behaviors that haven't been used yet, but are introduced in theoretical guidelines and are potential to influence student motivation. Well, the theoretical framework is based on self-determination theory, while some other social cognition and motivational theories explain the motivational process in the students. We used self-determination theory as the theoretical framework. This theory outlines a unique approach to examine the key determinants of behavior, and that is to focus on the quality of motivation rather than its quantity. Further, this theory highlights the motivational resources that all students have and suggests how teachers can adopt behaviors that may support and vitalize students' resources during the teaching process and to reach optimal student outcomes. Example teacher motivational behavior is presented here. I aim to develop a description, example teacher behavior, and function description for each teacher motivational behavior. The description explains the behavior in detail. The example behavior provides an indicative teacher behavior, and the function description links the behaviors to common mechanisms of action according to the theory, and it specifies how a teacher behavior targets the proposed mechanism of action. The theoretical framework for this study is self-determination theory, and particularly the basic psychological need theory, which is a sub-theory of SCT. Teachers, according to this sub-theory, teachers in a classroom can adopt a behavioral style that supports or towards the students' experiences of basic psychological needs, autonomy, competence, and relatedness. The three basic needs are nurtured, for example, by providing rational and choices, acknowledging students' progress and providing positive feedback, and providing interpersonal closeness and respect. On the other hand, in a need thwarting style, these needs can be thwarted using controlling language or external rewards, demeaning individuals' ability or emphasizing their failures, or putting them in an isolated state or neglecting them. The procedure I used for this study included the steps below. First, we created an initial list of teacher motivational behaviors by identifying related papers using systematic searches, reviewing self-determination theory guidelines and literature, and previously developed behavior change taxonomies. Using these resources, we found 210 potential teacher motivational behaviors. When using binning and winnowing method, we identified and deleted overlapping and redundant teacher motivational behaviors, and finally 73 TMB is retained for the Delphi. We asked 5 leading researchers in the field of motivation and behavior to review this list and provide their feedback on the list of behaviors and complete the survey. After this, we invited other experts to participate as the panelists. Altogether, 34 experts participated in this study. After the expert recruitment, we applied a 3-round Delphi procedure to reach consensus on the behaviors. After each round, we aggregated and analyzed the experts' feedback and refined the list of teacher motivational behaviors and prepared the survey for the next round. In rounds 2 and 3, we provided feedback for the experts and presented the results of the previous round. Finally, after the 3 rounds, the final classification was developed. An example item from the round 1 survey is presented here. In round 1, 2, and 3, the experts commented if the descriptive information on the descriptive information and rated the relevance of a behavior to the theory, the psychological need that a behavior most strongly targets, and the likely effect on student motivation. Finally, they suggested overlapping TMBs and potential new behaviors. We decided on the criteria of at least 90% of votes for relevance to theory, 80% for psychological need. For the effect, we decided on 90% of votes given to the range of the median, one level above the median and one level below the median. The table indicates the results of round 1, 2, and 3. It shows that the number of behaviors reached consensus in each round, and the number of behaviors suggested by the experts, and also the number of overlapping behaviors. The final classification included 44 behaviors, of which 28 are need supportive and 16 need thwarting behaviors. This is an excerpt from the final classification. The classification includes the teacher motivational behaviors for each psychological needs support and thwarting. For example, for autonomy support, the classification includes 10 teacher motivational behaviors. An example behavior is provide rationale, then its description, an indicative example teacher behavior, and function description, and likely effect on student motivation is presented, which is a moderate positive effect. Well, here I outlined some potential applications of the classification. The classification can be used as teacher motivational behavior coding measure, as it includes a comprehensive list of motivational behaviors that are applicable in educational context. Further, each teacher motivational behavior includes a description and example teacher behaviors. So machine learning methods can be trained using this data to automatically code teachers' behaviors from their language. The classification offers researchers a comprehensive list of behaviors to design effective interventions. And finally, the classification would facilitate meta-analysis of effects of each behavior once enough research is conducted using our classification. In study 3, I aim to develop a dictionary of teachers need supportive and need thwarting language to constructs that lack specialized and validated dictionaries for coding open-ended data. So on the statement of the problem, traditional methods of motivational behavior assessments such as self-report and observation have critical limitations. An automated coding method may overcome the limitations of traditional methods and accurately assess teachers' motivational behavior. Research evidence shows that a set of words used in natural language are indicative of certain psychological and cognitive constructs, and the dictionary method uses the presence of a group of words in transcriptions of spoken language to determine specific psychological states. This method has been shown to accurately analyze individuals' emotions, social relationships, and other psychological states. So I aim to develop a dictionary that can be used as an automated coding method for assessing teachers' motivational behavior from their spoken language. Particularly, I aim to develop a dictionary and test its feasibility for analyzing teachers' motivational behavior. I aim to develop a dictionary based on self-determination theory and using the teacher motivational behaviors identified in my second study. Also, I aim to examine the validity of developed dictionary against observer rating and student reports of teacher motivational behaviors. And finally, test its prediction power in predicting student motivation and engagement. Similar to the second study, I used self-determination theory as the theoretical framework. In this study, I wanted to see if teachers need supportive and thwarting behavior can be identified from their spoken language. That's why I aim to develop a list of words for each category. The more frequently teachers use the words of a category, the category would be indicative of their motivational style. For dictionary development, I used established dictionary development methods. The procedure that I followed started by collecting potential dictionary words, followed by base rate analysis and judge rating phase. Then I expanded the dictionary word list and did psychometric evaluation. And finally, the judges refined the dictionary. I will explain each phase in the next slides. In the first phase, I collected the potential dictionary words from sources such as keywords from most indicative examples of teacher motivational behaviors that I developed in my second study. I also reviewed the linguistic inquiry and word count dictionaries, built-in dictionaries, and identified potential words. The linguistic inquiry and word count program consists of almost 6,400 words that assess more than 80 constructs. I reviewed the constructs assessing conceptually near context to motivation to select the potential words. Further, I reviewed the related questionnaire items and other independently developed dictionaries that assess similar constructs and selected some more potential words. Right. The dataset for this study included transcriptions of 110 teachers' spoken language in high school classes. I used 30% of the main corpus to search for appearance of words and kept the rest of the corpora for other phases. In the second phase, I checked if any of the potential dictionary words exist in the corpora and in teacher's language. If they didn't appear, I deleted them. I first stemmed the potential words identified in the previous phase to increase the power of the dictionary to capture the maximum number of related words. For example, the word preference was stemmed to prefer, so the software would identify words such as prefer, preference, preferably, preferred, and so on. I did this using the Snowball C package in R. Then I checked if the words appeared in the corpus. I did this using prepel function in R. In the third phase, a group of 6 experts evaluated the balance of the words to each category. They voted on the psychological need that each word influences most. For example, a word supports or towards experiences of each psychological need, autonomy, competence, and relatedness. They also suggested other potential words. I expanded the dictionary word list that developed in previous phase. I added the synonyms and antonyms of the words and then repeated phase 2. I used WordNet package that identifies synonyms, antonyms, and also semantically similar words. I also used other free online dictionary websites. The purpose of psychometric evaluation was to identify the internal consistency of each category and remove words that were empirically unrelated to the construct. Here, internal consistency refers to whether items appear to coherently measure the same construct. For example, if autonomic working teachers tend to use many other words from this category. To calculate the internal consistency measure, I calculated the percentage of teacher words that corresponded to each word and each category in the dictionary using the second purpose of teacher statements. Words with low or negative item total correlations were added to a list of potential words for removal. 4 experts reviewed the list of candidate words with their internal consistency scores. consistency scores and voted on whether the words should be deleted or retained. And in the final phase, all the experts will be presented with the full dictionary to comment on words that they felt they are missed or misclassified. Any amendments will be resolved in discussion with at least 3 experts. The established methods of motivational behavior assessment are student ratings of teachers need support or working behaviors, and also observer rating, where trained observers observe the class and rate the teacher's behavior using a checklist. To assess the validity of dictionary, I will compare dictionary-derived ratings of teacher needs support to working behavior against established methods of rating needs support. Significant correlations between the dictionary-driven scores with observer report or student report measures would suggest that the scores from the dictionary are valid. To evaluate the power of dictionary in predicting student needs satisfaction and engagement, I will use dictionary-derived ratings to predict class average student needs satisfaction and compare the correlations to those between student reports and needs satisfaction and observer rating of teacher needs support and student needs satisfaction. I haven't completed the results and discussion for this study yet. This is the timeline for completion of my thesis. The systematic review is completed now. For the second study, I will address the comments on the manuscript and I aim to submit it in October. For the third study, I will analyze the data in November and December. Then we'll write up the results in January and February, and the discussion by April. I will write up the discussion chapter for thesis in May and June and aim to submit it in July. To quickly sum up this presentation, today I presented for my final year review and presented the 3 studies I conducted to reach the aim of my thesis. In the systematic review, I reviewed the automated coding methods for coding verbal behavior. Then in study 2, I developed a motivational behavior coding measure in education, followed by the third study, which I aim to develop and test the dictionary of motivational language as the automated coding method. This is the end of my presentation. I want to thank you all for your time and attention. Now, I think it's time for question and answer section. I would appreciate any comments, questions, or recommendations that you may have.